Welcome to the Back to Life podcast, where we explore living well, loving well, and being well. I'm your host, Nicole, and I invite you to tune in for inspirational conversations to get you back to life. Let's get started. All right, welcome back to the Back to Life podcast, where we journey together on living well, loving well, and being well. I'm your host, Nicole, and today we are going to be diving into the third episode of our series on the emotional impact of our thoughts and behaviors. So joining me today is the wonderful Angela, owner of Blue Phoenix Therapy. Hey, Angela.
Hey, Nicole.
Hey.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad you came back. No,
I did.
After we talked about anger. No. Are you ready to tackle perfectionism?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what you have to say about this.
All right. So in this episode, we're going to address three different we have three different focuses. Okay. We are going to first on anxious to meet you, where we explore how perfectionism can be both a coping mechanism and a hidden symptom of anxiety and depression. Chasing the pink elephant, where we look at that link, to anxiety and depression, as well as, we're going to look at the origins and stuff. And then finally, creating a sense of self, where we look at coping strategies to combat perfectionism and reflect on activities that we can do to, practice self-compassion and acceptance. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. So let's jump right in with our first point, anxious to meet you. Perfectionism and its origins. Nice. Let's talk about it, Angela.
Yeah. Well, I want to start by saying not all perfectionism is bad and negative.
Yeah.
So there can be positive perfectionism. It's called adaptive perfectionism.
It can serve you well.
Yes. When you have it's part of your personality, right? You set really high goals for yourself. But, when you don't quite meet those, you're not hard on yourself.
Yeah.
So that's a positive one.
Yes.
And then they have the negative one that's maladaptive. It's usually driven by fear or failure.
Uh-huh.
So I just want to put that out there because
we don't want anyone getting the wrong idea.
Yes. It's not always negative. But it does often start early in life, and it's usually influenced by a lot of different factors, family, expectations, being pressured by society, personal experiences. And again, looking back at Inside Out, love that. We kind of see how different emotions play a role in shaping our behaviors. Being a perfectionist can arise from just a desire to feel in control of something or to avoid criticism or rejection. So how do you kind of feel about it?
Well, I mean, it's a way to cope with our feelings of inadequacy, fear of failure, like you were talking about, the maladaptiveness of it all. The perfectionist mindset can be driven by the belief that being perfect will protect us from the negative emotions. It's almost like, okay, if I have everything just so, then they will like me, I will be accepted, or I'll get approval of some sort. And, sometimes that can lead to even more anxiety and stress and, Inside Out. With anxiety and that swirl. She's like, no, but it has to go like this and we have to do this.
I felt that on such a deep level.
Oh my gosh. Me too. No, but perfectionism also comes from this, or it can come from this thing about not being good enough and kind of like trying to perform in such a way in which, you do feel like, am I accepted now? Am I accepted now? And it's kind of like, no, don't, it's easier said than done not to do that to yourself. But it's super important to look at. It's like, what's the goal here? What are you really trying to do?
Exactly.
And what's driving that? Where's your thoughts going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty vicious cycle that goes on, with perfectionism. The more we strive for perfection, the more pressure we put on ourselves, the more anxiety we have, the more these feelings of anxiety or even depression can come from it. They get worse, the more pressure you put on yourself, especially if you're not, living up to that pressure that you're putting on yourself. And it brings us to our next point that's kind of going on with this. I love this. Chasing the pink elephant.
Oh, yeah. Because there's always an elephant in the room.
There is. So, the link between perfectionism, anxiety, and depression, what do you feel about that?
Well, in Inside Out, we see that we can see those introductions of those more complex emotions. Including our friend anxiety, embarrassment. What was the other one? The boredom, ennui.
Yes.
And envy and everything. And we'll be surprised because all of these things, they start to come out. It's almost like it starts to branch off.
Yes.
You know what I mean with this? And perfectionism can cause a branching.
Yes, it does.
And it, because by setting those unattainable standards that we constantly worry about meeting, hey, there's another branch, there's this, there's that, and so when we inevitably, feel like we're falling short, it can lead to feelings of failure and depression. And then we're sitting there going, why couldn't I do this? And so, like you were talking about it can lead to more depression as well as anxiety. The anxious part of that is I need to do this. So what if they, so they'll approve me. It's more future focused. Whereas that depressive thing is kind of like you're stuck in that past, like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, like, why can't I do this? It's so easy for other people.
Yes.
Like, why?
And you start to pile on this guilt and this shame of things that's not yours to carry.
Exactly.
And so, and my thing is, a lot of times you're doing things and, whether it's part of your craft or whatever and everything, and you're doing a great job, you have to know that you're doing a great job. That internal validation versus that external. Don't get me wrong, it's good to hear a good job now.
It is.
Let's not get that twisted. But the thing about it is we can't rely heavily on, other people approving what we do when we know we've put our all into something.
Exactly. Right? That constant chase for perfection. Ooh. Like chasing that pink elephant.
Yes. Come back.
And it's something that doesn't necessarily exist. Like you keep moving that goalpost, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna do this, and then when I get to that, are you happy? No, then you want to do something else. So where does that line of perfectionism, where does it become toxic? Where does it become unhealthy and bad?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question, but I have thought.
Okay.
I'm scared. But I had thought, and it's kind of like what about that being related, like this perfectionism and stuff, being related to like fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Fear of abandonment. Those type of fears where things we don't like on the surface, we're not thinking about that.
No.
But as when you were saying chasing the pink elephant, it's kind of like, what are we looking for? What are we chasing? Why are we trying to perform or put on a performance? What are you really chasing after? What is it that you really want?
Yeah, exactly. And I tend to look at things from a trauma lens.
Yes. Yes.
So what are you running from? Like, what are you trying to prove? And a lot of times, when you look at it from the lens of trauma, there's usually, people in your life that have criticized you or made you feel like you're not good enough.
You grew up with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're always trying to prove yourself in some kind of way, and when you fail, I think, especially when you have anxiety or, you come from that trauma background, when you fail, you take it really hard.
Yeah.
Because you want people to be proud of you. You're looking for that acceptance that you may not have always had in your life.
Exactly.
And that it leads to more anxiety. It leads to those feelings of depression, which also, branch off, like you said, to other aspects.
Yeah.
It's really draining, and it leaves us feeling unfulfilled and unhappy.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. I have this tickle in my throat. Sorry. But that's why it's so important to recognize perfection for what it is. It's a coping mechanism that is not necessarily serving us well.
No.
Instead, we need to learn to embrace perfection and practice self-compassion.
Yep, there's that word again.
hug yourself. No, but it is, it's really, self-compassion is really key. So let's move on to our final point, creating a sense of self and looking at some coping strategies to combat perfectionism and reflection activities to practice that self-compassion and acceptance.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah. So a really good, effective strategy is setting realistic and attainable goals.
Yes.
I think this one is hard sometimes for people, because we don't make a list of the goals that we want. We just set the end goal.
You just know, I want to go there.
Exactly. And sometimes it's better, right, to focus on little steps to get to that goal.
Yes.
It makes it more, the small steps and the small goals that we reach, we can celebrate those.
Yes.
And so I think that's really important. And then also focusing on just doing your best and celebrating, like I said, each little progress that you make. Another technique is to challenge negative self-talk. And I'm going to say, with everything again, like self-compassion, like mindfulness, another technique is to challenge, our negative self-talk, the way that we talk to ourselves, and replace those critical thoughts and those critical voices in our head, right, with kinder, more supportive ones.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Another one, helpful practice is mindfulness. Being present in the moment helps us to appreciate our efforts without judgment. Mindfulness is about paying attention to what's going on right now, right here, right? What is it? Be here right now, and, it helps to reflect on your achievements and acknowledge the effort that you put in more than just the outcome. And what about gratitude?
Well, definitely practicing gratitude, it shifts our focus from what's lacking to what's abundant in our lives.
Absolutely.
Keeping a gratitude journal can help reinforce these positive mindsets.
That journal again.
I know. But, just even the way that we go about our daily life, I always tell my clients to find something positive in their day, even if it's something small.
Look for the good, even if you have to squint.
Exactly. Because it can make a huge difference. We tend to get stuck in these negative headspaces, and it can be so hard to get out. So, be grateful for what you have or what you are going through or what you're seeing, even if it's not where you want to be.
You're breathing today.
Exactly.
For a lot of people, that's huge. So, and it doesn't diminish, anything that you're going through or whatever, but it does help to just notice the good.
Exactly.
Because there's so much that's not, you know what I mean? But there's so much that is.
Yes.
And when we notice the good, like I said earlier, even if you have to squint, it starts to shift our perspective about what we're doing, how we're approaching it, and how we show up.
Exactly. You may not have reached your goal today, but what did you do to work towards that goal today, right now? Even if it's like, hey, I, bought some note cards, I made a note.
Exactly.
If it's working towards your goal, take it.
Well, and also, I did a good job today.
Yes.
Period. Yeah. And we can't forget about community.
Exactly.
Community matters. You know what I mean? Surrounding ourselves with supportive people who encourage us to be our authentic selves and who appreciate us for who we are, not just, what we can achieve, is super important. And think about it. Like in my previous series about friendships, we were like, think about the people who you surround yourself with. Who's building you up, but also it's almost like an iron sharpens iron type thing. It's like, I want the best for you. So in doing so, I'm going to lift you up, but I'm also going to say, hey, you might want to rethink that.
Yeah. I love that. I mean?
Yeah. So it's kind of like the power of community can also reshape that perfectionism to something where it can serve you better.
Exactly. And I think that's great.
And move you forward.
And it's great because a lot of times with perfectionism, it's lonely because you can sometimes push people away and
people that you need.
Exactly. So having that community it's really important.
It is. It is.
So now I guess let's take a minute for reflection.
Oh, my favorite part.
I love this part. All right. So I want everybody to kind of sit back, just kind of think of a recent situation where you have felt pressure to be perfect. You
I
know,
think we can all relate to that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You know, what was the underlying emotion driving that need? You know, how can you reframe your perspective to embrace, you know, imperfection and practice that self-compassion?
Oh, that's a good one.
It is.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, especially in the world that we live in with social media and filters and all these things
all the things.
Yes, all the things. The need, you know, to be perfect is there on a daily basis, and it's so hard.
When we tell ourselves, I have to, I should, those type of things that's driving you, that's really just anxiety going, come on. And I'm just remembering that scene where she's like spinning around the control thing and it's like, it's just out of control. And everybody's like, what in the world, you know? So, but yeah, that was a great question, Angela. It's all about recognizing our worth beyond our achievements and being kind to ourselves. And just pushing that, you know, it's so important. Self-compassion is, you know, deeper than we realize, you know, and it's so needed because we are all human.
We are. And it just having compassion for yourself can change your entire mood. It can change your life, really. You know, when you start thinking positive and putting it out, right? Like manifesting positivity.
But no, but it's not just about like giving yourself excuses and you know, and stuff like that, but it is giving yourself grace. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, this didn't work out the way I wanted it to, or this is okay. You know what I mean? I think I did a good job. Such and such may not have liked that, but that's their opinion, you know? And so, or there's things that you can learn. There are ways in which you can move forward from it.
Yes.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I like this topic.
It's a good one. It's a good one. And thank you so much for joining me today, you know, and sharing your insights, especially from that trauma-informed lens. I appreciate that. And we hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. Join us next time as we continue the series with, guess what? Control.
Oh,
control. We are going to look at control and how that can hide, you know, in the crevices and stuff. So remember, living well, loving well, and being well starts with an understanding of ourselves better. Take care, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories about this series that we're talking about. You can follow us online at our website, on socials, and information about that is in the show notes.